What this father did next will absolutely shock you. You have to see how this ends. This isn't just a story. It's a masterclass in justice. The trunk of my Ford F-150 was slightly ajar. A flash of bright blue nylon caught my eye in the rearview mirror, a stark contrast to the dusty fishing gear and camping equipment packed around it. It was my daughter Emily's backpack. In that single fleeting instant, a wave of cold washed over me, so sudden and so violent it felt like I'd plunged into an icy lake. A premonition, a gut feeling so strong it made my knuckles turn white on the steering wheel. "Stop the car!" I yelled at my best friend William, who was sitting in the passenger seat, calmly sipping a lukewarm coffee from a gas station cup. William nearly jumped out of his skin. "What's wrong, James? You see a deer? You feelin' sick?" His hands, calloused from a lifetime of construction work, instinctively braced against the dashboard. "Stop the car. Now," I repeated, my voice cracking, sounding more hysterical than I ever had in my 62 years of life. I've always been the calm one, the steady hand. But right then, every nerve ending, every fiber of my being was screaming at me that something was terribly, fundamentally wrong. William shot me a look, a mixture of alarm and the kind of weary concern you give a friend you think might be losing his marbles. I saw the sigh form on his lips before he even let it out, but he's known me for 50 years. He knows I don't panic for no reason. He pulled the truck over onto the dusty shoulder of the old county highway, a stretch of gravel and sun-baked weeds. That single decision, that turn of the wheel, is the only reason we're alive today. Because inside that bright blue backpack was a secret that would shatter everything I thought I knew about my own daughter, my own life, and the very nature of good and evil. We had spent 3 glorious days up at Miller's Lake, just me and William, 2 old buddies escaping the city for our annual fishing trip. It was a tradition we'd kept since our wives passed away a few years back. It was our time to heal, to talk, to sit in comfortable silence. The trip back home to the outskirts of New York City was always more laid back. We'd been on the road for about 2 hours, the afternoon sun casting long shadows across the fields. William was humming an old Springsteen tune, the truck rumbling along a familiar rhythm. I decided to stretch a bit, trying to work a kink out of my neck from sleeping on a camping cot. That's when my eyes landed on the gap between the back seat and the trunk bed, the backpack, that out-of-place splash of blue that shouldn't have been there. My heart hammered against my ribs. Emily, my only child, my whole world since my wife passed, had come to see us off yesterday morning. She'd insisted on helping us load our gear into the truck. I could still picture her bright smile, her warm hug. "Drive careful, Dad," she'd said, kissing my cheek. "You know this old quarry road can be treacherous at night." Why did that sentence, so loving at the time, now send a bolt of pure ice through my veins? "William," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "there's a backpack back there." "I think it's Emily's." My friend glanced in the side mirror. "Huh, must have forgotten it. We'll give it to her when we get home." "No," I said, my voice sharp. "I need to see it. Now." William frowned, but something in my tone, a raw urgency he hadn't heard since the day I got the call about my wife's accident, made him understand. This wasn't a whim. I couldn't wait. I unbuckled my seatbelt, twisting my aging body around, my arms straining to reach through the small rear window of the cab. My fingers just brushed against the nylon. I stretched farther, a sharp pain shooting through my lower back. At 62, I wasn't as limber as I used to be, but a surge of pure adrenaline gave me a strength I didn't know I had. "James, for God's sake, you're gonna pull something," William grumbled, but he kept the truck stationary. Finally, my fingers closed around one of the straps. I yanked it hard. The backpack tumbled into the cab, landing on the center console with a heavy thud, just as William put the truck in park. He turned to me, his face a canvas of worry and confusion. "You want to tell me what in the hell is going on with you?" I didn't answer. My eyes were glued to the backpack. It was definitely Emily's, the one I'd bought her for her college graduation trip. But there was something wrong. It was heavy. Way too heavy for the couple of textbooks and a water bottle she usually carried. With hands that trembled uncontrollably, I unzipped the main compartment. On top were the usual things: a half-finished novel, a pair of sunglasses, a tube of lip balm. But underneath it all, wrapped in a thick wool sweater, was a laptop. Not the sleek MacBook Air she used for her graphic design work. This was a beat-up, cheap-looking Chromebook, and next to it, a small, black, featureless phone. The kind you buy with cash at a 7-Eleven. A burner phone. The air rushed out of my lungs in a silent gasp. William leaned over, his brow furrowed. What is that? Why would Emily have two of everything? That was the exact question that was making my blood run cold. I picked up the burner phone. It was slightly warm to the touch. As I held it, it vibrated in my palm. A notification. Then another. Someone was texting. I pressed the side button. The screen lit up, showing a string of WhatsApp notifications. There was no password, no lock screen, nothing. James! William's voice was tight. Maybe we shouldn't, but it was too late. My thumb was already on the screen, opening the messaging app. The most recent chat was with a contact saved only as D. The messages were fresh. Frighteningly fresh, D, 15 minutes ago. They just passed the turnoff for the interstate. They're on the old highway now. Emily, 12 minutes ago. They should be close then. Don't text anymore. It's too risky. D, 10 minutes ago. Confirmed. Everything will go as planned. My breathing grew shallow, ragged. I scrolled up, my eyes devouring the older messages. Each one was a punch to the gut, harder than the last. D, yesterday. The mechanic confirmed the job on the steering linkage. It will fail at the dead man's drop curve. Mile marker 28, my hands started to shake violently. Mile marker 28, the infamous dead man's drop. The most dangerous curve on the entire route. A hairpin turn with a sheer 200-foot drop into the old quarry on one side and a solid rock face on the other. D, 3 days ago. Are you sure about this? It's your father, Emily, 3 days ago. We don't have another choice, David. The gambling debts are over $200,000. If we don't pay them by next week, they'll break your legs. Or worse, the life insurance policy solves everything. Dad has a policy worth over $1 million. No one will ever suspect an accident on that road. The phone slipped from my grasp. William caught it before it hit the floor. His face, already pale, turned a ghostly white as he read. Dear God, he whispered, his voice hoarse. James, this can't be real, but I knew it was. In that one horrific moment, all the strange little pieces clicked into place. Emily's sudden flood of affection in recent weeks. Her new boyfriend, David, who was always just a little too charming, a little too slick. Her innocent questions about my life insurance policy, about my will. Her nervousness when I told her I hadn't updated my documents in years. Keep reading, I told William, my voice a hollow rasp I didn't recognize as my own. My friend's finger swiped across the screen. There was more. Conversations going back months. Photos Emily had secretly taken of my financial documents, my will, bank statements, the deed to my house. James, we have to call the cops, William said, already reaching for his own phone. This is attempted murder. No, I said, grabbing his arm. Not yet. What do you mean, not yet? Your own daughter is trying to kill you. He was right. Of course he was right. But a deep, primal part of me, the part that had raised that girl from a baby, needed to think. I needed to understand before the world came crashing down. I looked at the dashboard. According to the truck's GPS, we were at mile marker 15. The deadly curve was just 13 miles away. The silence in the truck was a physical weight. William was staring at me, his mouth agape, waiting for an explanation that made sense. But how could I explain this? How could I put into words that my daughter, my Emily, had meticulously planned my death with the cold calculation of an accountant balancing a ledger? I need to think, I murmured, taking the burner phone back from William, its plastic casing feeling like a venomous snake in my hand. I need to understand it all before I make a move. Think? William's voice rose, cracking with disbelief. James, there's nothing to think about. Emily and that son of a bitch David tampered with the truck. Any second now, the steering could— I know, I cut him off, my voice now eerily calm. But if we call the police now, they'll know we're onto them. They'll find a way to run, to hide, to destroy whatever other evidence exists. We need to be smarter than them. My best friend looked at me like I had completely lost my mind. And maybe I had. Maybe the shock of my daughter's betrayal had snapped something vital inside my brain. But as I held that phone, as I reread those soulless, calculating messages, something inside me began to transform. The pain was there, of course it was. a searing, tearing agony in my chest. But rising up through that pain was something else. Something cold and sharp, rage. Not the hot, explosive kind that makes you scream and punch walls. This was different. This was a rage of pure, clear ice, precise, focused. Emily had planned my death. The little girl I taught to ride a bike, the one I held when she had nightmares, the young woman whose college tuition I paid for by working double shifts for 10 years. That same person had looked at me and decided I was worth more dead than alive. $1 million life insurance policy, $200,000 in debt. The math was simple for them, apparently. "James, please," William begged, his eyes welling up with tears. "We can't stay in this truck. If the steering, you're right. I made a snap decision. We're going to test it, right now, while we're sitting still?" William nodded, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. He put the truck in drive, let it roll a few feet on the empty shoulder, and then turned the wheel hard to the left, then the right. The wheels responded. The steering felt fine. "It seems okay," William said, though his voice was choked with doubt. Maybe the plan was for it to fail gradually, I reasoned, the cold logic taking over. Maybe the mechanism they used is progressive. Mile marker 28, I trailed off. They'd designed this so it would fail at the most dangerous point possible. The precision was horrifying. They didn't just want an accident. They wanted a guaranteed, fatal one. A place where no one would question that an old man simply lost control of his truck. I looked at the phone again. There was a message I'd skimmed over before. David, last week. "The mechanic says it's a special corrosive paste. It eats at the metal linkage slowly with heat and vibration. By the time they get to the drop, there will be no way to steer the truck. And after the fall, the fire from the ruptured fuel tank will take care of the rest." No evidence left. The fire, of course. They had thought of everything. "Listen to me, William," I said, turning to my friend, grabbing his hands. They were ice cold. "We are going to pretend we found nothing. We are going to act like everything is perfectly normal." "Normal?" William looked at me, incredulous. "How in God's name are we going to do that?" "We are going to call Emily," I said, my voice firm, decisive. "We're going to tell her we found her backpack. And we are going to watch her reaction." "James, that's crazy. If she suspects we know—" "She won't suspect." My voice was pure steel. "Because we're going to act exactly like two old guys who found a forgotten backpack and just want to return it." William studied me for a long, silent moment. I saw the gears turning in his head, saw his expression shift from pure terror to a dawning, reluctant understanding. He was no fool. He knew what I was proposing. "You want to set a trap for them," he said finally. "I want justice," I corrected. "And I want to make sure that when they fall so hard they can never, ever get up again." I pulled my own cell phone from my pocket. Emily's number was at the top of my favorites list, next to a smiling picture of her from her graduation day. The photo now looked like the mask of a complete stranger. I pressed the call button. It rang once, twice. "Dad?" Emily's voice was bright, cheerful, so sickeningly normal. "Did you guys make it home already? Is everything okay on the road?" Every word was a knife twisting in my gut. Behind that sweet voice, my daughter was waiting for the phone call from the police, the one telling her that her father was dead. "Hey, sweetheart." I forced my voice to sound warm, fatherly. "We're not home yet. Actually, we pulled over for a minute. We found your backpack in the back of the truck. You must have forgotten it when you helped us pack." There was a silence. It was tiny, maybe only a second long, but in that second I heard a universe of panic. "My backpack?" Her voice had changed. A subtle shift, a tightening. "Oh, right, I didn't even notice." "It's not important, Dad. You can just bring it to me whenever you get here." "Well, the thing is, your old Chromebook is in it," I said, choosing my words carefully, measuring their impact. "And that little black phone you used to have. I just figured you might need them." Another pause. "Longer this time?" "My black phone?" "No, Dad, I have my phone right here with me. That must be a really old one I left in there ages ago." She was lying. I could hear it in her voice, a strained, high-pitched note of panic. William heard it too. His hand squeezed my arm. "Oh, well, maybe so," I replied, affecting a casual tone. "Anyway, you'll swing by tomorrow to pick up the bag, right?" Yes, of course, I'll stop by tomorrow." She was rushing now, desperate to get off the phone. Dad, be careful on the road. That quarry road is so dangerous, especially around the big drop. Drive slow, okay? The big drop. Mile marker 28. My own daughter was warning me about the exact spot where she had planned for me to die. The sheer black irony of it almost made me laugh. We will, sweetheart. I love you. I love you too, Dad. I hung up. The words "I love you" echoed in the cab of the truck like an invisible poison. I love you, I repeated in a whisper. How can she say that when she's waiting for me to die? William had no answer. There was no answer to that question. The instant I hung up, the burner phone in my lap buzzed to life. A string of messages from Emily to D, to David. Emily, 30 seconds ago. Crap. They found the bag, D, 20 seconds ago. What? How, Emily, 15 seconds ago. I forgot it in the truck. He just called me. Said he found a phone inside. D, 10 seconds ago. Did he check the phone? Emily, 5 seconds ago. I don't know. He sounded normal, but if he saw the messages, David, we're finished. D, right now. Calm down. If he'd seen anything, he wouldn't have called you acting normal. He probably just saw the phone and thought it was an old one. Old guys like him don't even know how to work those things. Old guys like him. William read the message over my shoulder and let out a choked, indignant snort. I said nothing, but something inside me hardened even more. David, the man who had been eating at my dinner table for the last 6 months. The man I had welcomed into my home was dismissing me as a clueless old man while actively planning my murder. Emily, right now. What do we do now? D, right now. We stick to the plan. If he suspected anything, he'd have turned around or called the cops. The fact that they're still on their way means he knows nothing. In less than an hour, it will all be over. In less than an hour, it will all be over. I glanced at the truck's clock. 4:37 p.m. By 5:30, according to their plan, William and I would be 2 more victims of a tragic accident on a notoriously dangerous road. We are not going to that curve, I said suddenly. We're going to do something different. What do you mean? William looked at me, a flicker of my own cold fire now in his eyes. We're going to pretend we broke down. We're going to call for a tow, but we're not going home. We're going straight to a mechanic. Understanding dawned on William's face. To get proof? To document what they did to the truck? Exactly, I said. We need physical evidence. The messages are a smoking gun, but a professional mechanic's report is a signed confession. William nodded slowly, his fear visibly giving way to a grim resolve. We were in this together, 2 old friends against the world, or more specifically, against my own daughter and the monster she'd let into our lives. William started the engine again, but instead of moving forward, he cranked the wheel and made a slow, careful U-turn, heading back the way we came, away from mile marker 28, away from the death my daughter had so carefully orchestrated. There's a garage back in Pine Creek, William said, his voice now steady, determined. The owner's a guy named Michael, a good man, honest as the day is long. He'll help us, I nodded. Michael. The name was a bitter coincidence. I had trusted David. I had trusted Emily. The word trust had been shattered into a million pieces. The burner phone vibrated again. More messages. David, God, I'm nervous. I can't stop thinking about it. Emily, don't think. Just wait. In an hour, the police will call to report the accident. We'll act shocked, devastated. We'll go to the scene. We'll cry. We'll do everything a grieving daughter is supposed to do. My blood ran cold at the image. My daughter faking tears over my dead body. David, what if they survive? Emily's reply came a second later, and it was the final nail in the coffin of the daughter I thought I knew. Emily, they won't. You said the mechanic was clear. At that speed, with the weight of the truck, the drop is over 200 feet. Nobody survives that, and if by some miracle they do, the fire will take care of the rest. I had to close my eyes. I felt physically sick. William saw my face and put a hand on my shoulder. Don't read anymore, James. We've seen enough. But I had to see. I had to know the depths of this betrayal. I kept scrolling, my trembling finger moving through weeks of their sinister planning. And then I found it. A conversation from a month ago that explained everything. Emily, a month ago. I'm scared, David. What if we get caught? David, a month ago. We won't. It worked before. My heart stopped. It worked before. What did that mean? I frantically scrolled, searching for the context. I found it in a chat from 2 months prior, right after David had first proposed the idea. David, my uncle died a few years ago. Boating accident. No one ever suspected a thing. I inherited everything. That's where the money for the down payment on my condo came from. The money I lost, Emily. You killed your uncle? David, I did what I had to do. He was old, always complaining. He was just going to sit on that money until he died anyway. I just sped up the inevitable. And now we'll do the same with your dad. Think about it, Em. He's 62. How many good years does he have left? 5? 10? Is it worth waiting while we get our legs broken by loan sharks? Emily, I don't know, David. He's my dad. David, he's an obstacle. Nothing more. Love doesn't pay off a $200,000 gambling debt. Love doesn't stop guys named Knuckles from visiting us. Your dad is our only way out. And then 2 words that sealed my fate. 2 words from my daughter. Emily, okay, we'll do it. Okay, we'll do it. She had chosen. Between her father's life and her boyfriend's gambling debt, she had chosen the debt. Between my life and their comfortable one, she had chosen theirs. The truck pulled to a stop, and I realized we were at the garage. Michael's Auto Repair, the sign read. A man in his late 50s with kind eyes and grease-stained hands came out from the bay. William! James! His smile vanished when he saw our faces. Lord, what happened? You two look like you've seen a ghost. William got out, walking toward him. I followed, more slowly, the burner phone clutched in my hand like a piece of radioactive waste. My mind was a whirlwind, calculating, planning. Michael, I said, my voice steadier than I could have hoped. We need your help. We need you to check the steering on this truck, right now, and we need you to document everything you find. Everything, the mechanic frowned. Steering problems? Feel a shimmy? Not exactly, William interjected. We have a strong reason to believe someone may have tampered with it. Michael's friendly expression evaporated, replaced by one of grave concern. This wasn't a request you got every day. Tampered? That's a criminal accusation. You should be calling the police. We will, I assured him. But first we need undeniable proof. We need an expert. We need you. Michael looked from my face to William's, then back again. He saw the desperation, the raw fear, and the cold anger. He nodded slowly. All right, pull it into the bay. Let's put her on the lift and see what we're dealing with. While he worked, William and I sat in the tiny, cluttered waiting room. The air smelled of oil and old tires. My mind was far away, replaying the last 10 years in my head. Emily, my brilliant, beautiful daughter. How had I not seen this? How had I been so blind to the darkness that had taken root in her heart? Or had David planted it there? The man I'd welcomed into my home, the man who had shaken my hand while planning to send me off a cliff. The burner phone vibrated again. An incoming call from David. I looked at William, who shook his head frantically. Don't answer. But I had to know. I let it ring, then ring again. It went to voicemail. A second later, a voice message notification appeared. My hand shaking, I pressed play. Emily, damn it, pick up the phone. David's voice was a harsh, panicked whisper. I need to know if your dad checked that phone. If he saw the messages, this whole thing is blown. Call me the second you get this. I put the phone away just as Michael walked into the waiting room. His face was grim. In his hands, he held a small metal part covered in a strange, gritty paste. Gentlemen, he said, his voice low and serious. You were right. You need to see this. Michael the mechanic led us into the garage bay, the truck looming above us on the hydraulic lift. He pointed a steady, grease-stained finger toward the front axle. Look here. He aimed a powerful flashlight at the steering tie rod, a crucial piece of metal connecting the steering system to the wheels. Someone's packed a chemical paste all around the joint. It's a mix I've only heard about in whispers, highly corrosive. The heat from the engine and the constant vibration of the road activates it. It eats away at the metal, slowly, progressively. The steering feels normal at first, but after a certain number of miles, the metal becomes brittle as a pretzel. One hard turn, one big bump. He didn't have to finish the sentence. How much further? I asked, my voice a dead calm that scared even myself. How much further could we have gone before it failed? Michael wiped his hands on a rag, his eyes grim. Looking at the state of it and considering the weight of this F-150, I'd say you had maybe 10, 15 more miles. Tops. After that, the linkage would have snapped clean in two. You would have had zero control. The wheel would just spin in your hands. He looked me dead in the eye. Without any warning at all. 10 to 15 more miles. We would have hit dead man's drop at mile marker 28. It was a perfect, diabolical machine of death. Can you document this? William's voice was raw. He had his phone out, snapping pictures, the flash glinting off the corroded metal. We need proof. Already on it, Michael said, pointing to a high-quality digital camera on his workbench. I'm taking photos of every angle. I'll also take samples of this paste and the corroded metal shavings for a lab analysis. This is a crime scene, gentlemen. You have to call the police, now. He was right. We had it all. The messages, the sabotage truck, the expert witness. It was time. But just as I reached for my phone, the burner phone vibrated in my pocket. A new message had arrived. Not from Emily or David. It was from an unsaved number, unknown number, payment received. $10,000 is agreed. The other half will be transferred as soon as you confirm the job is done. The crooked mechanic. The man who sold his soul for 20 grand to help murder 2 people. And in that moment, a new, colder, and far more dangerous idea began to form in my mind. We're not calling the cops, I said, the word surprising even me. Not yet, William stared at me, his face a mask of disbelief. James, we have everything. The texts, the truck, the proof. What more could you possibly need? David, my uncle died a few years ago. Boating accident. No one ever suspected a thing. I inherited everything. That's where the money for the down payment on my condo came from. The money I lost, Emily. You killed your uncle? David, I did what I had to do. He was old, always complaining. He was just going to sit on that money until he died anyway. I just sped up the inevitable. And now we'll do the same with your dad. Think about it, Em. He's 62. How many good years does he have left? 5? 10? Is it worth waiting while we get our legs broken by loan sharks? Emily, I don't know, David. He's my dad. David, he's an obstacle. Nothing more. Love doesn't pay off a $200,000 gambling debt. Love doesn't stop guys named Knuckles from visiting us. Your dad is our only way out. And then 2 words that sealed my fate. 2 words from my daughter. Emily, okay, we'll do it. Okay, we'll do it. She had chosen. Between her father's life and her boyfriend's gambling debt, she had chosen the debt. Between my life and their comfortable one, she had chosen theirs. The truck pulled to a stop, and I realized we were at the garage. Michael's Auto Repair, the sign read. A man in his late 50s with kind eyes and grease-stained hands came out from the bay. William! James! His smile vanished when he saw our faces. Lord, what happened? You 2 look like you've seen a ghost. William got out, walking toward him. I followed, more slowly, the burner phone clutched in my hand like a piece of radioactive waste. My mind was a whirlwind, calculating, planning. Michael, I said, my voice steadier than I could have hoped. We need your help. We need you to check the steering on this truck, right now, and we need you to document everything you find. Everything, the mechanic frowned. Steering problems? Feel a shimmy? Not exactly, William interjected. We have a strong reason to believe someone may have tampered with it. Michael's friendly expression evaporated, replaced by one of grave concern. This wasn't a request you got every day. Tampered? That's a criminal accusation. You should be calling the police. We will, I assured him. But first we need undeniable proof. We need an expert. We need you. Michael looked from my face to William's, then back again. He saw the desperation, the raw fear, and the cold anger. He nodded slowly. All right, pull it into the bay. Let's put her on the lift and see what we're dealing with. While he worked, William and I sat in the tiny, cluttered waiting room. The air smelled of oil and old tires. My mind was far away, replaying the last 10 years in my head. Emily, my brilliant, beautiful daughter. How had I not seen this? How had I been so blind to the darkness that had taken root in her heart? Or had David planted it there? The man I'd welcomed into my home, the man who had shaken my hand while planning to send me off a cliff. The burner phone vibrated again. An incoming call from David. I looked at William, who shook his head frantically. Don't answer. But I had to know. I let it ring, then ring again. It went to voicemail. A second later, a voice message notification appeared. My hand shaking, I pressed play. "Emily, damn it, pick up the phone." David's voice was a harsh, panicked whisper. "I need to know if your dad checked that phone. If he saw the messages, this whole thing is blown. Call me the second you get this." I put the phone away just as Michael walked into the waiting room. His face was grim. In his hands he held a small metal part covered in a strange, gritty paste. "Gentlemen," he said, his voice low and serious. "You were right. You need to see this." Michael the mechanic led us into the garage bay, the truck looming above us on the hydraulic lift. He pointed a steady, grease-stained finger toward the front axle. "Look here." He aimed a powerful flashlight at the steering tie rod, a crucial piece of metal connecting the steering system to the wheels. "Someone's packed a chemical paste all around the joint. It's a mix I've only heard about in whispers, highly corrosive. The heat from the engine and the constant vibration of the road activates it. It eats away at the metal, slowly, progressively. The steering feels normal at first, but after a certain number of miles, the metal becomes brittle as a pretzel. One hard turn, one big bump." He didn't have to finish the sentence. "How much further?" I asked, my voice a dead calm that scared even myself. How much further could we have gone before it failed? Michael wiped his hands on a rag, his eyes grim. "Looking at the state of it, and considering the weight of this F-150, I'd say you had maybe 10, 15 more miles, tops. After that, the linkage would have snapped clean in two. You would have had zero control. The wheel would just spin in your hands." He looked me dead in the eye. "Without any warning at all, 10 to 15 more miles. We would have hit dead man's drop at mile marker 28. It was a perfect, diabolical machine of death. Can you document this?" William's voice was raw. He had his phone out, snapping pictures, the flash glinting off the corroded metal. "We need proof." "Already on it," Michael said, pointing to a high-quality digital camera on his workbench. "I'm taking photos of every angle. I'll also take samples of this paste and the corroded metal shavings for a lab analysis. This is a crime scene, gentlemen. You have to call the police now." He was right. We had it all. The messages, the sabotaged truck, the expert witness. It was time. But just as I reached for my phone, the burner phone vibrated in my pocket. A new message had arrived. Not from Emily or David. It was from an unsaved number. Unknown number. Payment received. 10,000 as agreed. The other half will be transferred as soon as you confirm the job is done. The crooked mechanic. The man who sold his soul for 20 grand to help murder 2 people. And in that moment, a new, colder, and far more dangerous idea began to form in my mind. "We're not calling the cops," I said, the words surprising even me. "Not yet." William stared at me, his face a mask of disbelief. "James, we have everything. The texts, the truck, the proof. What more could you possibly need?" I rang the buzzer, the backpack held firmly in my hand. I smoothed my expression into one of weary paternal affection. I heard footsteps. The door swung open. It was Emily. She looked drawn, her eyes puffy and shadowed. She'd been crying. Or maybe just stressing. "Dad," she said, her voice trembling slightly. What are you doing here?" "Came to bring you your backpack, sweetheart," I said, holding it out to her with a tired smile. "Didn't want you to be without your things." Emily took the bag, her hands shaking as she did. Her eyes immediately darted inside, searching. I saw the flicker of relief when she saw the cheap laptop and the burner phone, nestled right where she'd left them. "Thanks, Dad. You really didn't have to." "It's no trouble. Besides, I wanted to make sure you were okay. You sounded a little stressed on the phone." "Stressed?" She forced a laugh. It sounded like breaking glass. No, just busy. Work stuff." David appeared behind her, his expression a carefully constructed mask of casual surprise. "James, hey man, come on in." I stepped into the apartment I'd helped her get the security deposit for. The thought was acid in my stomach. Family photos hung on the walls, including several of me and Emily smiling. It was all a lie, a prop in their sick little play. "Can I get you something to drink, Dad?" Emily was already moving the backpack, stashing it in a hallway closet, her body shielding it from my view as she no doubt quickly checked the phone. "No, thank you. I just wanted to drop this off. It's been a long day. How was the trip back?" David asked, settling onto the sofa, his posture relaxed, but his eyes sharp, watching me. Emily said you had some truck trouble. Ah, that. I waved a hand dismissively. Just a weird noise from the engine. Nothing major. A real nice fella gave us a ride the rest of the way. We were lucky I saw them exchange a look. A flicker of silent communication that screamed, "What went wrong? Why isn't he dead?" "Well, I'm glad you're okay," Emily said, rejoining us. She seemed calmer now, having confirmed her precious secrets were seemingly undiscovered. That quarry road can be so tricky. It sure is, I agreed, looking her straight in the eye. Especially around that big drop. Mile marker 28, right? Emily paled, just for a second. Yeah, that one's a bad one. I got up, stretching my back. Well, I'll let you two have your evening. Just wanted to make sure you got your bag, sweetheart. Emily walked me to the door. Before I left, I pulled her into a hug. I felt her body go rigid in my arms. It was like hugging a statue. I wondered if she'd ever felt genuine love for me in the past year, or if it had all been a performance. I love you, Emily, I whispered, my lips close to her ear. I love you too. Dad, she replied. Lies, all of it. I drove home with a heart of stone but a mind as clear as glass. The game was afoot. Emily and David thought they'd had a close call, a lucky escape. They thought their secret was safe. They had no idea the storm that was about to break over their heads. At 8 a.m. sharp, I was sitting across the polished mahogany desk from Robert Miller. My lawyer, a man with a mind like a steel trap, listened with a deepening expression of horror as I laid out the entire story. The burner phone, the text messages, the sabotaged truck, David's veiled confession about his uncle. When I finished, Robert leaned back in his leather chair, took off his glasses, and rubbed his eyes. James, I am speechless. Emily is your little girl. I've known her since she was in pigtails. So did I. My voice was flat. That's why I need your help, Robert. I need to protect every asset I have, and I need to set a trap they can't escape. Robert leaned forward, all business now. Tell me what you have in mind. For the next hour, we laid out the strategy. First, Robert would immediately draft a new will. Emily would be completely disinherited. Every penny, every brick of my house would go into a new charitable foundation. Second, we would revoke any and all power of attorney documents Emily might have. But we don't file any of this yet, I explained. We date it for today, get it notarized, and you lock it in your safe. If anything happens to me, it all takes effect automatically. Brilliant, Robert said. But there's more. You need to move your liquid assets, now, today. If she has your banking info, she and this David character could try to drain your accounts. He was right. We spent the next 2 hours on the phone with my bank. With Robert's guidance, I opened a new series of accounts at a different institution and initiated the transfer of my entire life savings. Nearly $500,000 earned over 40 years of hard work. Money Emily and David had counted as their own. Now for the hard part, Robert said, printing out the stack of documents for my signature. You want a confession. How do you plan to get it? A cold smile formed on my lips. They think I'm a clueless old man who can barely work his smartphone. I'm going to use that against them. I'm going to invite them over for dinner, and I'm going to record every single word. Robert's brow furrowed. Covert recordings can be tricky in court, James. Then we'll make sure the circumstances are perfect. Besides, I don't just need it for court. I need it to break them. Once I have them on tape, I can use it to leverage a full, formal confession for the police. My lawyer looked at me for a long moment. You've changed, James. You've become very strategic. David and Emily taught me a valuable lesson, I said, the bitterness sharp in my voice. In this world, you're either the hunter or the hunted. And I'm done being hunted. Before I left, I gave him one final task. I need you to dig into David's past. Everything you can find on his uncle's death. You have connections. Use them. Robert wrote down the name. You really think he did it? I'd bet my life on it, I said. Which I almost did. If we can prove that, he's not just going down for trying to kill me. He's going down for murder. I left that office feeling, for the first time, like I had some semblance of control. The pieces of my trap were being set. Emily and David thought they were in the clear. But I was methodically, silently, cutting them off from everything they craved. When I got home, William was in the kitchen, a pot of chili simmering on the stove. He looked like he hadn't slept a wink. How'd it go? He asked. It's done. My assets are secure. Emily gets nothing. William nodded, but he didn't look relieved. James, I was up all night. Are you sure about this dinner plan? We can still go to the cops. We have more than enough. I sat across from him. William, David has gotten away with murder once. He's slick. He'll create doubt. He'll twist things. But if I have their own voices, their own confession on tape, there's no escape from that. I left the rest unsaid. The rest of the week was a surreal exercise in deception. Emily called twice, her voice dripping with fake concern, asking how I was, asking if I'd taken the truck to the shop yet. Each call was a scene in a play, and we were both playing our parts to perfection. She, the loving daughter, me, the oblivious father. On Thursday, Robert called. James, I've got something on David's uncle. The official report on his death is a boating accident 12 years ago, but I spoke to a retired detective who worked the case. He always thought something was fishy. The boat's fuel line was deliberately cut, but it was made to look like it chafed through. They could never prove it. David, the sole heir, inherited a small fortune, sold all his uncle's assets, and left town a month later. A year after that, he met Emily. It all clicked. A pattern. A method. On Friday night, I picked up the phone and called my daughter. Hey, sweetheart. I want to have you and David over for dinner tomorrow night. I'm making my famous pot roast, the one you've always loved. A beat of silence. Tomorrow? Oh, let me check with David. A muffled conversation. Yeah, Dad, we can be there. What time? 7 o'clock. And Emily, I said, my voice warm and inviting. Bring your appetites. It's going to be a very special night. She had no idea just how special it was going to be. It was going to be the night her entire world came crashing down. The night she learned her clueless old dad was not the man she thought he was. The night the prey was going to reveal his teeth. Saturday arrived with a heavy, expectant stillness. William and I spent the day preparing the house, not like a home, but like a stage. I cooked the pot roast, the rich aroma filling the kitchen. For decades, that smell had meant love, family, and comfort. Today, it was the bait in a steel trap. While the roast simmered, I armed the room. Robert had provided a tiny, powerful audio recorder, which I secured with black tape to the underside of the heavy oak dining table. I also set my own phone to record audio, planning to leave it casually on the table near my plate. 2 separate recordings. No room for error. Are you sure about this? William asked for the dozenth time, his face etched with worry as he polished the silverware. Absolutely, I said, tasting the gravy. Tonight, David and Emily are going to give me the one thing their lawyers can't argue with. The truth, in their own voices. At 7 o'clock on the dot, the headlights of David's car swept across the living room window. My heart gave a single hard thump against my ribs, but my hands were steady. William gave me a solid, reassuring look from the kitchen doorway and then disappeared from view, ready to play his part. I opened the door with a warm, welcoming smile plastered on my face. Emily was dressed up, a strained smile on her lips. David beside her was all cool confidence, holding a bottle of expensive-looking wine. The perfect guests for a slaughter, my favorite people, I boomed, pulling them into hugs. The tension in their bodies was electric. Smells amazing, Dad, Emily said, her voice a little too bright. Only the best for my girl, I said, leading them to the dining room. We sat down. The table was set with my late wife's best china. My phone rested innocently next to my wine glass, its screen dark, its microphone live. The hidden recorder below waited silently. The meal began with trivial chatter, work, the weather, a new movie they'd seen. But underneath it all, the air was thick with unspoken questions. I could see them sizing me up, searching for any sign that I knew. I decided it was time to start reeling them in. You know, I began, carving a thick slice of roast. That little scare with the truck got me thinking. About the future. Emily froze, her fork halfway to her mouth. Dad, don't talk like that. You're perfectly healthy. Healthy today, gone tomorrow, I said with a shrug. At my age, you have to be practical. That's why I spent a day with my lawyer this week, Robert Miller. You remember him, Emily. The silence was deafening. David put his glass down with a soft click. Your lawyer? He asked, his voice carefully neutral. Why? Just getting my affairs in order, I said cheerfully. The will, the life insurance, the deed to the house. Made some significant adjustments. Emily's face had gone pale. What kind of adjustments? Oh, you know. Protecting my assets. I looked directly at David. You can never be too careful about who might be trying to get their hands on your money, right? David's mask of charm flickered. I'm sure I don't know what you mean, James. Don't you? I put my knife and fork down, my folksy dad act evaporating. My voice dropped, turning to ice. I'm talking about a gambling debt of over $200,000. I'm talking about a crooked mechanic and a corrosive paste. I'm talking about Dead Man's Drop at mile marker 28. Emily let out a strangled gasp, her hand flying to her mouth. David shot to his feet, his chair scraping loudly against the wood floor. This is insane! I don't know what kind of fantasy you're spinning, but sit down, David, I commanded, my voice like a whip crack. The show is just getting started. I reached into the pocket of my jacket and tossed the burner phone onto the center of the table. It landed with a plastic clatter. I know everything. I found the backpack. I found the phone. I read every single message detailing how you were going to murder me for my $1 million life insurance policy. Emily burst into hysterical sobs. Dad, no, you don't understand. We were desperate. David owed these terrible people money. They were going to hurt us. There it was, the confession. Live and in stereo. Desperate? My voice was dangerously quiet. Was David's uncle desperate when David cut his boat's fuel line and passed it off as an accident? Is that where you learned this trick, David? David's face, which had been red with anger, drained of all color. He looked at me, truly seeing me for the first time, not as a clueless old man, but as his executioner. You have no proof of any of that, he hissed, his composure shattering. That phone could be anyone's. The messages are fake. But they're not, I said calmly. And the phone is just the start. I also have the truck. My friend Michael, the mechanic, documented everything. The paste, the corrosion, the precise point of failure. He has photos, lab samples, a signed notarized report. It's all very professional. Realization dawned in David's eyes. He saw the trap closing around him. He turned on Emily, his voice a venomous whisper. This is your fault. You and your stupid backpack. My fault? She shrieked back, tears streaming down her face. You're the one who killed your uncle. You're the one who pushed me to do this. While they snarled at each other, I watched, my heart a cold, heavy stone. This was the justice I wanted. This raw, ugly truth, exposed under the lights of my own dining room. Suddenly, David lunged. Not for me, but for the burner phone on the table. He snatched it up and, with a roar of fury, smashed it against the wall. It shattered into a dozen pieces. There goes your proof. He screamed, panting. I didn't flinch. I took a slow sip of my wine. That was one recording, David. This one, I said, tapping my own phone on the table, is another. And then there's the third device, the one you don't know about, that's been recording this whole dinner. His face fell. The bravado, the anger, it all collapsed, replaced by the hollow-eyed terror of a cornered animal. He looked around the room wildly, as if he could spot the other microphone through sheer force of will. It's a trap, he whispered. This was all a trap. From the moment I saw that backpack, I confirmed. You thought you were hunting me. You were wrong. Dad, please, Emily begged, falling to her knees beside my chair. We can leave. We'll disappear. You'll never see us again. Just let us go. So you can do this to another family? William's voice boomed as he stepped out of the kitchen, holding a baseball bat. He wasn't going to use it, but the message was clear. It ends here. Then, as if on cue, the room was filled with the piercing sound of police sirens, growing louder and louder. I had called the local police chief, an old friend, before dinner, and told him to have a unit ready. I'd sent him a text 5 minutes ago. It's time. Blue and red lights flashed through the windows, painting the walls in strobing colors of judgment. David made one last, desperate move. He grabbed a steak knife from the table and held it to Emily's throat. Nobody moves. We're walking out of here. Emily screamed, a sound of pure terror. I just shook my head, my voice filled with pity. Checkmate, David. Look up. I pointed to the corner of the room where a tiny, almost invisible black dome was mounted. New security system. High definition, streams directly to the cloud. You're a movie star, he followed my finger. The sight of the camera broke him. The knife clattered to the floor. He sank into a chair, his body limp, utterly defeated. The police burst in, guns drawn. The scene was over in seconds. As they cuffed a sobbing Emily and a stone-faced David, my daughter looked at me one last time, her eyes pleading. "Dad, I'm your daughter." I looked back at the stranger before me. "No," I said, my voice clear and final. "My daughter would never have done this. I don't know who you are." I watched them being led away into the night, and for the first time in a week, I took a deep, clean breath. It was over. 1 year later, the sun was warm on my face, the air filled with the scent of pine and fresh lake water. The gentle lapping of the waves against the boat was the only sound, aside from William's contented sigh as he reeled in another respectable-sized bass. "That's number 5 for me," he gloated, holding it up. "You're losing your touch, old man." I just laughed, a real deep belly laugh that felt incredible. "I'm letting you win. It's good for your ego." Life was good. Unbelievably, impossibly good. The trial had been a slam dunk. With the recordings, the mechanic's testimony, and the evidence from the truck, the jury was out for less than an hour. Emily and David were sentenced to 25 years to life for conspiracy to commit murder. The evidence I'd gathered with Robert's help was also enough to reopen the case of David's uncle. He was found guilty of that murder too, adding another life sentence to his name. They would both die in prison. The best part? The police investigation into their finances led them straight to the loan sharks. The whole disgusting organization was taken down in a massive sting operation. Every loose end, tied up and thrown away, Emily had tried to write to me. Robert had informed me of the letters, but I'd told him to return them, unopened. That chapter of my life was closed. The money I had saved, the money they tried to kill me for, had become the seed for something beautiful. The James Espinosa Foundation for the Aid of the Elderly was thriving. With Robert and William on the board, we were actively helping seniors who were victims of financial abuse and manipulation. We had already saved 3 families from situations eerily similar to my own. My pain had been forged into a shield for others. As William put his fish on ice, my phone buzzed. It was a picture message from the local animal shelter, a goofy-looking golden retriever with one floppy ear holding a tennis ball. The text underneath read, "He's all yours, James. Ready when you are." I grinned, showing the picture to William. "Looks like we've got a new fishing buddy." William clapped me on the back, his smile as wide as my own. "It's about time." I looked out across the sparkling water of Miller's Lake, the same place where this nightmare had begun, and felt a profound sense of peace. I had faced the absolute worst of humanity, a betrayal so deep it could have destroyed me. But it hadn't. It had revealed a strength I never knew I had. It had deepened my friendship with William into a true brotherhood. It had given me a new purpose. I hadn't just survived. I had won. The sun began to set, casting a breathtaking golden glow over the entire lake. I leaned back in my seat, closed my eyes, and just listened to the sounds of the world being exactly as it should be. For the first time in a long, long time, I was completely 100% happy. And as I smiled, I knew, deep in my soul, that the best years of my life were just beginning.